What's up? I'm Hutch, and you need to better understand the parts of the brain so that you can treat your patients with brain injuries and also pass the NPTE. The brain can be injured in lots of ways, from a blocked blood vessel causing a stroke to blunt force trauma causing a traumatic brain injury. Every brain injury is going to be a little bit different just based on the structures that it's affecting. And I'll have more videos on this coming up. The brain is split into the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. The forebrain is basically the whole cerebrum, and it's made of a bunch of different lobes. The frontal lobe controls executive function, personality, and voluntary motion. If injured, you may see decreased concentration, changes in personality, and contralateral hemiparesis. The parietal lobe controls perception, sensory input, and language comprehension. So when injured, you'll see things like apraxia, aphasia, and contralateral sensory deficits. The temporal lobe controls hearing, smell, language, and memory. So when injured, you'll see aphasia again, decreased sensory input and hearing and smell, as well as memory deficits. The occipital lobe controls your vision. So when injured, you can see things like homonymous hemianopsia or cortical blindness. There are a few more structures in the brain that are also included in the forebrain. For example, the limbic system. The limbic system is made of the hippocampus, amygdala, hypothalamus, and thalamus. This system isn't necessarily separate from the lobes, but it contains pieces of different lobes, and it's really in charge of mood and emotion as well as memory. And so if this group of structures is damaged, you'll see things like increased aggression as well as memory problems again. The thalamus itself is like a relay station for sensory input. And so if this is injured, you may have decreased sensation. You can also have what's called thalamic pain syndrome. The epithalamus controls your sleep and circadian rhythm. And so if this is injured, you're going to have problems sleeping or getting on that schedule to sleep properly. And the basal ganglia as well as the epithalamus kind of control motion as well as tone of your muscles. And so when this is injured, you can have things like Parkinson's-like movements, Tourette's, where you get tics or jerky motions because your body is not able to regulate and fine-tune those motor pathways. Now, the midbrain is an actual structure in the brain as well as a region that encompasses both the midbrain and the ventricles that store cerebrospinal fluid, as well as a few choroid plexuses where that cerebrospinal fluid is created. So the midbrain, which is part of the midbrain region, as well as the pons and medulla, which are part of the hindbrain, make up the brain stem. The brain stem is in charge of your vital signs as well as cranial nerve integration. And if you have damage to the brain stem, you can have things like locked-in syndrome, where you're able to receive and understand a bunch of input, but you can't communicate outwards, as well as death. Also in the hindbrain, you have the cerebellum, which controls posture, balance, and fine-tunes your motions. So when injured, you can get things like ataxia, as well as decreased balance and coordination. So really quickly, I also want to go through the layers of the brain. So you have the actual brain itself, and then you have the pia mater right above it, which kind of forms a skin over the brain. In the pia mater, you'll also find more choroid plexuses to create additional cerebrospinal fluid. The layer above it is called the arachnoid mater, and this looks like it's attached to the pia mater via these spiderweb-like protrusions, which are actually tunnels for nerves and cerebrospinal fluid to enter and exit the brain. And then you have the dura mater, which is a little bit thicker, and this controls the blood-brain barrier. And then right above that, you have the skull. If you have a head injury, there's going to be fluid collecting in between these layers, and it's really important to go get some imaging done to make sure you don't have any swelling or excess fluid in that area, because that pressure can cause really severe symptoms or death pretty quickly. Now it's time for NPT Jeopardy! Pause the video now if you want time to read and think about the question. Otherwise, you've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Chorea-like motions are like tics or jerks, which are associated with the basal ganglia. Cerebellar injuries may cause poor planning or targeting, leading to uncoordinated motions. Hopefully that covers all of our bases. If not, you can always check out the description box below for a link to my notes on Etsy, or you can comment with questions or suggestions for videos I should do in the future. Otherwise, good luck studying. Go change the world.